welcome to the deep dive. Today we're kicking off something a bit special.
We are. This is the first in our series for the LSOS Talks, focusing on Krakow, a city of science.
Exactly. And we're starting by cutting through a lot of the usual corporate noise to figure out what real strategy, what real innovation actually looks like.
Not in a textbook, but on the ground. And specifically, we're looking at the entrepreneurial scene in Krakow, Poland.
Our source for this is fantastic. We're looking at insights from the strategist Bartłomiej Piotrowski. He's the mind behind something called Krakowski Świstak, the Krakow marmot.
And his whole job is to dive into what he calls the organizational chaos of companies and help them build, well, conscious strategies to get out of it.
So our mission for you today is pretty clear. We want to chart the path out of that chaos.
We're moving way past the myth that innovation is only for, some huge R&D lab.
Right. This is about the internal shifts, the mental changes you have to make to go from just reacting all day to actually commanding your own direction. If you feel like you're stuck in that daily chaos, this is for you.
Okay, so let's start with the big one, innovation. When you hear that word, I think most of us, we picture sun.
Huge global breakthrough.
A massive, world-changing invention. But Piotrowski, he just flips that definition completely.
He really does. For him, it's not actually about the technology.
So what is it about?
It's about having the courage to change your perspective. He's very clear on this. Innovation starts with a change in mindset.
And the tech.
The technology is just the result. It's the consequence of that new way of thinking. The real innovation is that first decision to just stop doing things the old, inefficient way.
That's such a crucial distinction,
Yeah.
because if you stick with that narrow view, that if something already exists somewhere else in the world, it's not innovative.
Then you're always just playing catch up.
Yeah, exactly. Local markets can never truly innovate. But he completely rejects that. He says, look, if an idea or a process is new to your local market, let's say here in Poland, and you implement it effectively.
And that is an innovation.
It absolutely is
Yeah.
on that local scale. And that suddenly means innovation isn't just for a company with a billion-dollar research budget.
It's for the local firm that figures out a new way to manage its supply chain that none of its competitors have thought of.
Exactly. So if innovation is the cure, then what's the disease? What's the thing that stops entrepreneurs from even starting this journey?
Let me guess. Just being too busy.
It's the constant state of hurry. He calls it firefighting mode.
I think we all know what that feels like.
Oh, yeah. You're just living from one crisis to the next, just trying to make it through the week. You're only ever reacting.
And when you're in that state, you have zero mental space for big picture thinking.
None. Innovation requires you to step off the treadmill. But taking that first step means you have to admit that the way you're running right now, it just isn't working. And that leads right to the solution. If the enemy is firefighting, the solution is strategic change. It's an organizational innovation in itself.
Okay, but hang on. Why is something like ordering your processes considered revolutionary? Isn't that just, good management?
It's a good question. The breakthrough is really twofold. First, it forces you to actually define a direction. The company stops just reacting and starts creating its own future.
Okay, that makes sense.
But second, and this is the really profound part, is that strategy forces you to decide what not to do.
Saying no.
Saying no. That conscious decision to stop a wasteful project, or to let go of an unprofitable client, or to finally dismantle a process that everyone hates but just keeps doing.
That's often the hardest part.
It's the biggest and most painful innovation a company can make,
Yeah.
but it frees up everything for real growth.
And this is why his analogy comes in, right? The captain versus the firefighter.
Yes, it's so powerful because they are two completely different jobs inside the same business.
So the firefighter is the one in the trenches.
Exactly. Living in perpetual rescue mode, focused only on today's survival. They save the company every single day, but they never, ever grow it.
And the captain.
The captain takes full responsibility for the ship's direction. They are charting the course, looking at the long-term journey. And that switch from firefighter to captain is the mental leap you have to make before any real strategy can begin.
It sounds like that shift would take a lot of time, though. Piotrowski mentions his own tool, the cyclum Świstaka, the marmot cycle.
That's the one.
And he says it takes about a year to really embed in a company. For a small business or a startup moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, isn't a year just too long?
That's the challenge, right? But the year isn't about sitting in meetings, writing a document that just goes on a shelf.
So what is it about?
The marmot cycle is more about building a new rhythm, a rhythm of continuous strategic thinking. It builds in accountability, especially for those hard decisions about what to stop doing.
So it's about making strategy a habit, not a one-time event.
Precisely. It builds the system that stops you from sliding back into chaos.
Yeah.
And redesigning your company's culture and habits.
Yeah.
Well, that just can't be rushed.
Okay, so if execution is the key, let's look at the place where this is happening. Let's talk about Krakow. What is it that inspires Piotrowski about the entrepreneurs there? It can't just be about having good ideas.
No, it's not. It's what he calls a necessary duality. He sees people who can combine inventiveness, right, with consequence,
Yeah.
or consequentia.
And what does he mean by consequence? Just follow through.
It's more than that. It's the grit, the determination to see a project all the way through despite all the obstacles, despite that daily pull to just go back to firefighting.
That's the real strategic differentiator.
It is. But what makes it interesting in the Krakow context is that it's not just about individual grit anymore.
Okay.
He sees this real shift away from hyper-individualism and toward cooperation, collaboration. People are actively looking for partners.
So it's a collective effort.
A recognition that you can execute better and deeper with a strong network than you can as an isolated genius.
You know, it's interesting the examples he gives for this. A startup leader, a social activist, and an expert in Allegro advertisement.
I know, right? It seems so specific.
It's a very non-traditional list of inspirations.
And that is exactly his point. He mentions Mikasz Adamczyk from Krakow Miastem Startupo, Izabela Cijak from Hevra, and Tomasz Witoniowski, the Allegro ads guy.
So what's the lesson there?
The lesson is that strategic thinking and focused execution aren't just for glamorous, globally scaling tech companies.
You can create your own blue ocean, so to speak.
Anywhere. If you can achieve strategic mastery in something as specific and narrow as Allegro ads, you are demonstrating that consequentia, that follow-through that he values so much.
So let's talk more about that ecosystem. What really makes the Krakow environment different, especially when it comes to science, business, and startups all working together?
He says the defining feature is the density of relationships. Exactly. It's a place where people just know each other, they meet, they talk. It's not like some huge, sprawling corporate megacity.
It has a more human pace.
It does.
Yeah.
And that means the worlds of academia, of NGOs, of startups, of big business, they're all remarkably close to each other.
And that density must help speed things up, right? Ideas and trust can move a lot faster when you don't have to go through 10 layers of corporate bureaucracy.
Precisely. He calls Krakow a city of many faces, where you have academics, artists, small businesses, and major corporations all mixing. And it's supported by things like the LifeScience cluster, or events like Archipelag Inawachi.
Events that are deliberately designed to get people from science and business in the same room.
Yes, to force those interactions.
And does that environment create a different type of entrepreneur? Is there a generational shift happening?
Oh, a huge one. And a really positive one. He says younger entrepreneurs are just so much more open.
Open to what?
To asking questions, to admitting they don't have all the answers, to actively looking for mentors. They have this strategic humility.
I love that phrase, strategic humility.
And they really live by that idea of, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be in the room where I can learn.
That's a massive shift in ego, and I imagine that connects to a pay-it-forward culture, too.
It's directly connected. This new generation of founders often got help when they were starting out, so they were just inherently more willing to give back and guide the next person.
Compared to the old school, I'll figure it all out myself mindset.
Yes, and that peer-to-peer knowledge sharing is so important. It becomes the strategic lubricant for the whole ecosystem, especially when things like formal, early-stage funding might still be hard to come by.
So putting this all together, what does it mean for the future of innovation in Krakow? We have the strengths, that density, that collaborative mindset, but what's still missing? What needs to be optimized?
Piotrowski points to two main gaps. First is the continued need for spaces, both physical and just conceptual, for these different worlds to meet.
More forums where science, tech, business, social causes can all collide.
Regularly and seamlessly. And the second one is, of course, the resource challenge. Yep. A critical need for easier financing right at the very beginning.
For just testing ideas.
For testing ideas, for rapid prototyping. For seed funding, that is not afraid of risk. The ideas are there, the willpower is there, but that mechanism to turn a thought into a prototype needs to be stronger.
So if we synthesize all of this, from the internal battle with chaos to the strengths of the local ecosystem, what's the ultimate goal of all this strategic work?
For Piotrowski, the greatest joy is seeing a client make that deep internal shift.
How so?
They stop seeing their company as a chore or a burden or just a machine that needs constant fixing, and then start to see it as a project of life,
A source of meaning.
a source of profound meaning that they are consciously creating through strategic decisions, the profit and the growth. Those are just the consequences of that internal change.
And what about for that young entrepreneur, maybe in Krakow, maybe anywhere, who's listening to this and wants to be truly innovative? What is his final piece of advice?
It's simple. Don't immediately try to be revolutionary.
Okay.
Instead, focus like a laser on curiosity and observation. Deeply, truly understand the people you're trying to help. Innovation comes from that. It comes from observing a real need and then having the courage to make small, meaningful changes to meet it.
Not from some grand abstract theory.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, building directly on what Piotrowski said. The absolute core of innovation is the decision to shift from reactive maintenance to conscious design.
From firefighter to designer.
Yes. So think about it. Where in your own work or even your life are you still just reproducing old patterns? Still acting as a firefighter? Instead of stepping back and strategically designing a new solution? That decision to stop reproducing and to start designing, that is truly where innovation begins.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.